I'm 79 years old, and there are 7 things I finally stopped doing. For most of my life, nobody warned me that some habits quietly steal your peace. They don't announce themselves. They just sit on your chest, a little heavier each year. And if you're over 60, I'd guess you're carrying a few of them tonight yourself. I carried mine for decades, right up until my hands were too tired to hold them. Tonight I'll tell you the 7 things I stopped doing and what my life became after. Not all at once, slowly, the way you set down a suitcase you've dragged too far. So pour yourself something warm and let an old woman talk you through it, one by one. First, let me tell you who's speaking, so you know these words were paid for in full. I'm not a doctor. I'm not an expert. I never wrote a book or stood behind a lectern. I'm a woman who married young, raised children, buried a husband, and kept on walking. I worked behind a bakery counter for 26 years. My back still knows the early mornings. I know the smell of bread at 5 in the morning and the ache of a long day on my feet. My knees complain when the weather turns, and I take the stairs slowly now, one at a time. I've been a bride, a mother, a widow, and a stranger to my own reflection, all in one life. So I'm not talking down to you from anywhere above. I'm sitting right there beside you, because everything I'm about to say, I wish someone had said to me back at 50. For most of those years, I believed the peace would come later, once everything was handled, once the children were grown, once the bills were paid, once I'd somehow earned a little rest. So I waited, and I gave, and I apologized. And I put my own small joys away for safekeeping. I saved the good dishes. I swallowed my own words. I built my days around other people's needs. And somewhere past 70, I looked around and saw that later had quietly become now. The children were grown and gone. The husband was gone. The someday I saved for was here, and I'd spent it. I'd handed away the best years doing things I never had to do at all. That's the day I began setting them down, one by one, these 7 old and heavy habits. I'm not a wise woman. I'm just an old one who got everything wrong first, and slowly. So don't think you need to be special to learn this. You only need to be tired enough. Take the ones that fit your life. Leave the rest right here. That's how wisdom has always worked. The first thing I stopped doing is waiting for people to be grateful. For most of my life, I gave, and then I waited quietly for the thank you to come. I baked the pies, I sewed the curtains, I drove clear across town when nobody else would. And underneath all the giving, a small ledger sat open, counting what I felt I was owed. I told myself I gave freely, but I watched. I noticed who thanked me and who forgot. When the thanks didn't come, something in me curdled. A quiet, sour little hurt. One Christmas, I spent 3 whole days cooking for the family, my feet swollen by the end. They ate, they laughed, they left. And no one said much of anything about the food at all. I sat alone in the kitchen afterward, scrubbing the pans, feeling invisible and used up. And I nursed that grievance for weeks, the way you worry a splinter you can't quite reach. Then one evening it struck me. I'd turned my own kindness into a kind of debt collection. I wasn't giving, I was lending, quietly charging interest and calling the whole thing love. The gratitude may come or it may not. Most folks are too busy in their own lives to notice. But if I only give to be thanked, then it was never a gift. It was always just a bill. So I made a decision. I give now because it warms me to give, and then I let it go. If the thank you comes, it's a lovely surprise. If it doesn't, I've lost nothing at all. The bread I bake is mine to give away freely. What they do with it is not my business. And you would not believe how light my hands felt the day I stopped keeping that ledger. The second thing I stopped doing is apologizing for my age all the day long. You may not notice you do it, but listen to yourself sometime. We apologize constantly. I'm sorry I'm so slow. I'm sorry my memory isn't what it was. I'm sorry to be a bother. I said it at the grocery counter, fumbling for my coins while the line grew behind me. I said it to the young waiter, to my own children, to strangers holding a door for me. Sorry, sorry, sorry. As if being 79 were a mess I'd made and had to clean up. One day a girl at the pharmacy waited while I counted out change with my shaking fingers. I started my apology, and she smiled and said, "Take your time. There's no hurry at all." And I realized I'd been rushing myself, scolding myself, for the crime of simply being old. I earned every one of these years. I didn't steal them. I outlived a great deal to get here. Why on earth would I apologize for the slow, careful walk of a woman who's come so far? So I stopped. Now I take my time at the counter, and I do not say sorry for it. I say thank you for your patience instead, and I hand the shame right back where it came from. If my memory drops a name, I laugh and say, "It'll come to me," and I let it come slowly. Being old is not an inconvenience you owe the world an apology for. It's a gift many never got. You don't have to say sorry for taking up space, for moving slow, for being exactly your age. Straighten your back, my dear, as much as it will straighten. You have nothing to apologize for. The third thing I stopped doing is saving my joy for some special day that never came. I had a set of good dishes, white with a thin gold rim, a wedding gift from my mother. For 50 years they sat in the cabinet behind glass, waiting for an occasion grand enough. We ate off the everyday plates, the chipped ones, and saved the good ones for the company. But the company rarely came, and when it did, I was too nervous to use the good dishes anyway. I had a silk blouse, deep blue, still folded in tissue, saved for somewhere I never went. I had good perfume. I used a drop at a time, guarding it, as if joy were a thing that ran out. After my husband died, I was sorting the cabinet, and I found those dishes, dusty and unused. 50 years of Sunday dinners we could have eaten off the good china, and we never once did. I stood there holding a gold rim plate, and I cried for all the plain days we had wasted. What was I saving them for? What day did I think was coming that was better than my own life? So that very night I took the good dishes down, and I ate my supper of toast off of one. I wore the silk blouse to the grocery store. I put the perfume on to sit alone on the porch. There is no occasion coming grander than this ordinary Tuesday you are living in right now. The good day you're saving your joy for. is the very day you're standing in, my dear. Use the dishes. Wear the blue. Light the good candle for no reason but that you're still here. Joy isn't a savings account you'll spend at the end. It spoils if you keep it in the cabinet. The fourth thing I stopped doing is shrinking myself small to keep everybody else comfortable. For most of my life, I made myself easy to be around, quiet, agreeable, never any trouble. If someone said something that stung, I let it pass. If I disagreed, I looked down at my lap. I had opinions, but I folded them up small and tucked them where they wouldn't bother a soul. At the family table, the men talked, and I refilled the plates and kept my thoughts to myself. I thought keeping the peace was a woman's job, and I was so good at it, I nearly disappeared. One holiday, a relative said something unkind about my sister, right there at my own table. The old me would have swallowed it, passed the potatoes, and kept the evening smooth and quiet. But something had run out in me. I set down the dish and said, "We don't speak of her that way." The table went silent. My heart pounded like a girl's. I was sure I had ruined the whole night. But you know what? Nothing broke. He apologized, and I slept better than I had in years. Keeping the peace by silencing yourself isn't peace at all. It's a war you're quietly losing. I spent decades so afraid of making waves that I let myself be washed clean away. Now I speak. Kindly most of the time, but I speak. My voice is old, but it still works fine. You're allowed to take up your share of the room. You're allowed to say, "That isn't right." The people worth keeping won't leave because you finally spoke. They've been waiting to hear you. Don't make yourself smaller so others can feel larger. You spent too long already being quiet. The fifth thing I stopped doing is measuring my worth by how useful I am to everyone. All my life, I earned my place by doing. I was the one who could be counted on, always. Need a casserole for the funeral? Call me. Need someone to sit with the baby? I was there. Being needed felt like being loved, and so I made myself endlessly, tirelessly needed. But then the body slows. The hands don't do as much. The casseroles get harder to carry. And a cold fear crept in. If I can't do for people anymore, what am I even good for? I watched my own mother wrestle that same fear, apologizing for needing a little help herself. She'd spent her whole life useful and couldn't grasp that she was still worth the loving. It broke my heart to see it. And then I caught myself doing the very same thing years on. I turned down help I needed. I hid my tiredness. I kept doing to prove I was still worth keeping. Then my granddaughter sat with me one afternoon, not because I'd cooked or fixed a thing. She just wanted my company. She held my hand and said, "Grandma, I like being near you." And it hit me. She wasn't measuring what I did. She was simply glad that I was there. Your worth was never in your usefulness. A person is not a tool that loses value as it wears. You were worth loving as a helpless baby who could do nothing at all. Nothing has changed since. Let people love you for your company, not your casseroles. Let yourself be, and not only do. You are allowed to sit and be enjoyed, like the good dishes, like the warm afternoon light. The sixth thing I stopped doing is building my whole day around waiting for the phone to ring. There's a telephone on my kitchen wall, and for years it ruled me like a hard little judge. I'd count the days since my son last called and let the number grow into an open wound. I planned my mornings around it. I wouldn't leave the house in case I missed him calling. I'd look at that silent phone and read a whole story in it, that I was forgotten, a burden. The waiting soured every good thing. A quiet afternoon felt like a slight instead of a gift. One day I caught myself, 69 years old, sitting by a phone like a girl waiting on a beau. And I thought, what a way to spend the hours I've got left, hostage to a thing that isn't ringing. So I picked it up myself. I dialed my son. He answered, surprised, and we talked for an hour. I did not scold him for the silence. I said, I was thinking of you and wanted your voice. But here's the deeper thing I learned, past just making the call. I stopped waiting altogether. I stopped letting a silent phone decide whether my day was a good one or a lonely one. My children love me in their busy, forgetful, grown-up way. The quiet isn't a verdict on me. So I fill my own hours now. I walk, I bake, I call a friend. I let the phone ring when it rings. And the strange thing is, when I stopped waiting so hard, the calls seemed to come more easily. Don't hand the key to your happiness to a telephone or to anyone who forgets to lift one. Live your day full and warm on your own. Let their call be a sweet addition, not the whole meal. The seventh thing I stopped doing is carrying the whole heavy past to bed with me each night. For years, the minute my head hit the pillow, the courtroom opened up behind my eyes. Every mistake I'd ever made would file in and take the stand, one after another, all night. The sharp word to my daughter in 1971. The chance I didn't take. The friend I failed. I'd lie there and prosecute myself until 2 a.m, then wake up tired and guilty. I thought going over it meant I cared, meant I was a decent woman taking careful stock. But it changed nothing. You cannot scrub a stain out of the past by rubbing it raw all night. I was serving a sentence for crimes the world had long ago forgiven or plain forgotten. One sleepless night, I got up, made a cup of warm milk, and sat in the dark kitchen thinking. And I asked myself, would you speak to a friend the way you speak to yourself at midnight? Never. I'd never sit in judgment of a tired old friend the way I sat in judgment of me. The past is not a courtroom where the verdict gets read out fresh again every single night. It's a garden you've walked through. You can't unplant it. You can only tend what's growing now. So I made a small ritual. At night, I name one thing I did right that day, however small. I held a door. I called a friend. I let a mistake be old. And then I let myself sleep. Forgive the young woman you were. She was doing her best with the little she knew back then. You have punished her long enough. Let her rest. Let yourself at last lie down and rest too. Now those are the 7 things, but wisdom isn't a list you nod at and then forget. It's what your hands actually do on an ordinary Wednesday in a quiet house with no one watching. So let me show you how these look in a real life, mine, down at the kitchen and the front step. There's a widow down my street, newer to it than me, and last week I asked her to supper. The old me would have cleaned for 2 days first and cooked something to prove I still could. Instead, I set the good gold-rimmed dishes on a table with yesterday's mail still on the end. I made a simple soup, and I did not apologize for the house or for the plainness of the meal. She cried a little over that soup. She said no one had set her a place since her husband passed. We didn't need a spotless house or a grand roast. We needed 2 old women and a warm bowl. If there's someone lonely near you, don't wait until you're ready. Ready never comes. Just ask them in. There's a grandson I hadn't heard from in a good long while, off in his busy young life. I used to wait and ache and read his silence as proof that the old are easy to forget. This spring, I stopped waiting. I wrote him a short letter by hand, just to say I loved him. I didn't ask why he never called. I laid down no guilt. I only said, "I think of you often." He wrote back. Then he telephoned. Then he drove out one Sunday, and we sat on the porch till dark. Going first is not weakness, my dear. It's love, brave enough to move before its pride does. Last month, the church committee asked me to run the whole autumn supper, the way I always had. My mouth began to say yes before my heart got any vote at all. Pure old habit, that was. But I stopped. I took one slow breath. I said, "I'd love to bring 2 pies, but I can't run it." The woman blinked and said, "Of course, thank you for the pies." And that was the whole calamity. I baked my 2 pies, glad as a girl, and I went home and slept without 1 ounce of guilt. You can say no to the labor and yes to the joy. You get to choose your own small portion now. There's a mirror in my hall, and for years I met it with a wince and a list of repairs. Fix the hair, hide the hands, apologize to the face for daring to look its own age. Now I stop and I look at her. 79 years of weather and worry and a great deal of love. I say out loud sometimes, "You've carried plenty, old girl, and you're still on your feet." Then I put on a little lipstick, not to hide a thing, but because the color pleases me. You do not owe the world a younger face. You never signed that paper. No woman ever did. In my closet sits a shoebox of old letters, tied with a ribbon gone soft as a moth's wing. For a long while I couldn't open it. The past inside felt like a room I might get lost in. But I've made a truce with the past now, so one gray afternoon I brewed tea and untied it. I read my husband's terrible spelling, a joke of my mother's, a note from a friend long gone. I cried, but I laughed more. The ones we love live on in the paper, the ink, the small words. I read 1 letter a week now. It isn't grief, it's a visit. It's them come to sit with me. And most evenings I do the thing I once swore I was far too busy and useful to ever do. I take my coffee to the porch, sit in the old rocking chair, and I watch the whole day close. A neighbor boy pedals past. A dog barks somewhere. The light goes gold, then rose, then soft gray. I used to think sitting still was doing nothing, a lazy waste for a woman with chores to finish. Now I know It's the most important appointment I keep, being here, awake, for one more evening. That porch is my church now. No sermon, just the light, my breath, and quiet enough to hear it. There's one more thing I want to name, because I know a good many of you feel it too. Somewhere after 60, the world stops looking at you. You become a bit of gray furniture. The young clerk speaks right over your head. No one holds the door. You feel yourself fading. For a while that broke my heart. I'd been a bride once, a pretty girl, and now I was scenery. Then a small child at the market stared up at me, open and curious, the way little ones do. She asked, "Are you somebody's grandma?" I said, "I surely am." And she said, "You look soft and kind. You look soft and kind." I've been called a lot of things in my life. That one I'll keep forever. I decided then I'd rather be soft than seen. I stopped needing the whole world's eyes on me. I look people in the face now myself. I call the tired clerk by her name. I do the seeing. You don't vanish when the world quits watching. You're finally free to turn your gaze outward. Sometimes I imagine sitting across from myself at 40, that tired, frightened young mother. I know exactly what I'd tell her, and I'd hold both her hands so she couldn't look away. I'd say, "Stop waiting to be thanked. Give what you give freely, then set it down in peace." I'd say, "Never apologize for growing older. Each year is a gift the ones you've buried never got." I'd say, "Take the good dishes down now. Wear the blue blouse. Don't save your one life for later." I'd say, "Use your voice. Keeping quiet won't keep the peace. It'll only slowly erase you." I'd say, "You are worth loving, even on the day you can't lift a finger for a living soul." I'd say, "Don't sit by that phone. Live your day and let the ones you love catch up to you." I'd say, "And please, stop putting yourself on trial every night. That poor girl has done her best." I can't reach that young woman now, but maybe tonight, across this little light, I can reach you. Now let me tell you why these 7 are so hard and why so few of us ever learn them early. When we're young, we're handed a long list of things to fear, and we believe every word of it. Fear of being judged, fear of being useless, fear of being alone in a house gone quiet. And fear is loud and convincing. It shouts. It keeps you cleaning and apologizing and waiting. But here is what age does, if you let it. It slowly turns the volume of that fear down. Not because you go numb, because you've watched over and over that the sky does not fall. You spoke up once and survived it. You were slow at the counter, and the world kept turning. You used the good dishes, and no lightning came. You said no, and the friends stayed anyway. After enough of those small mornings, the fear loses its grip. You've caught it in too many lies. That isn't wisdom dropped from heaven. It's just a long life, teaching the same lesson slowly. I think a great deal now about time, the way you do with more behind you than ahead. When I was young, time felt like an ocean, endless, wasteful, mine to spill however I liked. Now it feels like the last warm inches of coffee in the cup, and I drink them slow and grateful. That change is not a sad thing. It's the thing that finally taught me what was worth my days. You cannot make more time, but you can stop pouring yours out on fear and waiting and show. That's what all 7 of these are. 7 ways to stop spending your life on what never mattered, and to start spending it on purpose on the few small things that always, always did. Let me tell you about one recent evening, because it's the nearest I can come to showing you. It was raining, the slow, steady kind, and the house was quiet, and I was alone on the porch. Years ago, an evening like that would have found me anxious. A chore, a worry, a silent phone, the house not clean enough, a child who hadn't called, some sharp old word I couldn't take back. But this evening, I sat in the rocker with my coffee, and I felt not 1 ounce of all that. I'd used the good dishes at supper. I'd said no to a thing I didn't want. I'd called a friend first. There were letters read and no apology owed and no trial waiting for me at bedtime. And I realized, rocking there, that the woman I'd been so afraid to become was simply free. Not younger, not richer, not admired by a single soul. Just free and warm and here and enough. That is what I stopped doing. And in the space those 7 habits left behind, this came in. Peace. On an ordinary rainy evening at 79 with no one watching. And it was plenty. So here is what I want to ask of you before you turn off the light and go to sleep tonight. Not 7 things, just 1. Wisdom is only ever real on the night your hands actually do it. Take 1 good dish down from the cabinet and eat your morning toast off of it like a queen. Or call the one you've been waiting on. Go first. Let your pride lose this 1 small round. Or say no to a thing you dread and give that freed-up hour back to your own tired self. Or stand at your mirror and say 1 kind word to the face that has carried you all this way. Just 1 tonight, small enough to truly do, large enough to feel a little weight lift off. You don't have to mend your whole life this evening. You only have to set 1 habit down. I did every hard thing myself, you know, with these 2 shaking hands and a pounding heart. The first no, the first call, the first good plate, none of it felt brave. It felt like fear. Courage isn't the shaking stopping. It's reaching for the phone while your whole hand still shakes. So let your hand shake, my dear, and do the thing anyway. That's the secret, and now it's yours. Here is the truth I most want you to carry out of this room and into your quiet night. It is not too late. It is not too late for you. Let an old woman say it to you plainly. Not too late to speak, to begin, to use the blue blouse, to be gentle with the woman you are. You are not behind. You are not too much. You are not running out of time to finally live. Whatever you're still doing out of old fear, you're allowed to stop. No one will stop you but you. I spent 60 years thinking peace was a prize for the perfect. It isn't. It's a choice for the tired. And you, my dear, sound tired. So choose it. Set the habits down. Come sit on the porch with me. I've buried more people than I can name in one sitting, and still I sit here and tell you to hope. Not because I'm foolish, but because I've seen what the other road costs, and it costs everything. Bitterness is cheap and easy, and it will gladly eat every good year you have left to live. Hope is harder. You must choose it again each morning, sometimes before the coffee's even done. But hope is the only thing I've found that makes the long nights survivable, and then even sweet. So choose it with me, one old woman to one tired soul. Choose the warmer road home tonight. If this old voice reached you tonight, then stay a while, subscribe, and come sit with me again. There's a chair here for you whenever the house gets too quiet and the night runs on too long. And next time, I want to tell you about the words I wish I'd said before it was too late to say them. The things we leave unspoken to the people we love, and how to say them while there's still time. I'm calling it the things to say before you can't, but it's really about the love we're all still holding. So bring your coffee back to this porch. I'll be right here with the light left on for you. Thank you for staying with me. It means more than